good day and welcome to the 6th edition of the SASI Debate Challenge. This is episode 7. This battleground of intellect is brought to you by SAYWHAT with support from the Swedish Embassy in Zimbabwe. I am your debate mistress, formerly known as Nicole Natsai Chimanikire, but powerfully known as .co.Nicole. Let the games begin. Before I read out the motions, I will ask that the 4 teams that are about to battle it out introduce themselves, starting from my far right, going all the way to my far left. Podium 1.
Hello, my name is Precious.
Hello, my name is Gwanda.
And podium 1, what is your university?
Harare Institute of Technology.
Podium 2.
Hello, my name is Nicole from the University of Zimbabwe.
My name is Goslati from the University of Zimbabwe.
Podium 3.
My name is Makanaka from Africa University.
My name is Robert Tungwarara from AU.
Podium 4.
I'm Ashley from Gwanda State University.
Sadiwa Daka, Gwanda State University.
Introductions having been made, the motion reads: This house regrets the Tinashe Mugabe DNA show. I will repeat. This house regrets the Tinashe Mugabe DNA show. Without much further ado, I will call upon the Prime Minister from the opening government to come and make their case. The floor is yours.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to begin by saying that this house regrets the Tinashe Mugabe DNA show. We do not regret their service of providing DNA tests and services to other families, but the show and how it's conducted. So I would like to begin by saying exploitation of vulnerable individuals. When I say exploitation of vulnerable individuals, I'm literally saying that Tinashe Mugabe DNA show, they are individuals who have their information aired online or broadcasted on public television, which should be considered a private matter or a private solution. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm trying to say by this point that a matter of 2 people and their infidelity should not be something to broadcast or something to spread to all over Zimbabwe, for they have other people they know which can actually affect their stance in the social community. My next point is lack of informed consent. Ladies and gentlemen, most of the participants on the show are not actually informed about the consequences of participating on the DNA show. What do I mean by in lack of informed consent? I'm saying there are some questions which may not be tolerable or which cannot be answered on a public air show. But Tinashe Mugabe still continues to ask such questions in a manner that may actually disadvantage the individuals. That may actually disadvantage the individuals. The other thing I would like to say is my next point: proliferation of harmful stereotypes. The DNA show, as it actually performs, it's a show which shows whether the mother or the father is the owner of the child in question, or the child who has had or her DNA test conducted. So, by harmful stereotypes, I'm trying to say that there are stereotypes which come about by seeing such a show and saying that women are actually not loyal, or maybe should have infiltrated or gone and sleep somewhere else, brought back a child, claim that this child belongs to this certain man. So this brings about stereotypes about paternity or about family relationships. To such an extent, some people may actually wonder if one of their siblings is actually them, or the father might actually have some trust issues, saying, I would know if this is my child or not. And this may actually disadvantage some people who would want to engage in families, who want to start their own families, by being actually stereotyped that if you have a family, if you begin a family, your woman might actually cheat on you and result in giving you or making you keep babies that are not yours. Declined. The other thing is unethical and unprofessional conduct. The conduct of Tinashe Mugabe and other personnel involved in the DNA show is not actually ethical. For example, I'd like to allow me to speak in vernacular when they say Baba Makajika Bota Kangani. They actually ask the sexual activity of 2 people on broadcast, and this is something which cannot be considered an ethical issue or an ethical solution that should be spread out to the whole of Zimbabwe or to anyone who is watching that show. So I am actually saying that the show has a conduct which is unethical and unprofessional, which is what we regret. I would also like to say that this house regrets the Tinashe Mugabe DNA show because there is negative impact on society. The DNA show has a negative impact on society by promoting a culture of sensationalism and exploitation, which causes social, moral erosion. Ladies and gentlemen, as I have clarified before, we do not regret their service of providing the DNA tests, but we regret how the show is conducted. We regret how they are giving these results back to us through public television, through broadcasting it to everyone who does not have to know such information. So ladies and gentlemen, I would like to leave this podium by saying that a negative impact on society is whereby people actually know that this woman was not actually faithful to her husband, or etc., did this and this with whom. Ladies and gentlemen, this can have a very negative impact on the image of ladies. With this, I raise my case. Thank you.
That was the Prime Minister of our debate. We will be moving swiftly along to the Leader of Opposition. Leader of Opposition, the floor is yours.
We think, like, at a point in time at which proposition claims that individuals who probably got to know about the show by watching it and reading about it on social media, and all the nasty reviews that probably were done about the previous participants are not actively informed about the types of consequences that they are putting themselves into, is something we won't accept in this debate. But secondly, we think at a point at which individuals opt into these kind of systems, and with like the recent update where they're required to even pay a small amount to take part and contribute to the DNA, we think you directly consent to everything and each and every consequence that results from your active participation in that show. We think what we expected from them in this debate was to give us exclusive consequences that exist as a result of the existence of this show. What do we get from them? In the majority of the case, we get things like how we invade the privacy of these individuals when we put them on the show. Speaker, we think individuals who value their privacy are sitting at home and are still procrastinating about whether or not this child is theirs or is not theirs, because they think, oh well, my privacy is more important than knowing the paternity of my child. We think the reason why these individuals are on this show is because they believe that knowing the truth about whether or not this individual is their child is way more important than their privacy. Individuals opt into these kind of institutions. But two, they say, oh no, we think like we proliferate a stereotype about how women cheat or men cheat. Listen, panel, we think the alternative is a world where this type of discourse does not exist, and we simply assume that each and everyone is loyal and we can just freely jump into most of these sorry, the assumption is that like the alternative world is like this stereotype does not exist, but we don't get the types of like exclusivity that exists to say in the absence of this show, or in a society where we don't get Tinashe Mugabe talking about these things on national TV, those stereotypes cease to exist, because we think they continue to exist and are perpetuated by like a number of social institutions, your ideologies about women, the type of cultures that people buy into. We think these like ideals continue to exist, and we don't get analysis on why it's like purely exclusive to this like to this show, right? We think like what we expected from them was to prove, number one, why people don't have prior opt-in autonomy to this, and if they don't have prior opt-in autonomy, then we regret the show. But two, they have to prove to us why this consent is not really informed at a point at which individuals are actively aware of the consequences that they are putting themselves into. Society in and of itself like wants to like as an incentive or a desire to want to establish meaningful relationships that can be sustainable in the long run. We think this actively looks like their pursuit for things like truth, honesty, value, and trust. The reason why we value and buy into Tinashe's show is because it seeks to like actively maintain this kind of values that society for so long continues to pursue. But two, we think it allows like us to engage individuals that tear into the fabric of those meaningful relationships actively existing in society. The alternative world is a world where we actually like act as if these things are not happening and we ignore them. And at a point at which individuals actively suppress these conversations, they happen in closed doors, behind like closed doors, where men are bound to become even aggressive in an attempt to try and engage this, because they've bought it in for so long, and like it become more radical, right? But then two, we think like at a point in time at which this is happening on national TV, individuals can like fully appreciate the consequences of any type of fidelity. The reason why we think this is important is because like in a world where people engage in conduct that tears through the fabric of meaningful relationships, we actively deter a number of these individuals from jumping into those systems, because they are aware of the type of drastic consequences that exist when you're on national TV and are being shamed in front of everyone for claiming that this child belongs to that individual, or simply because or simply because like you lied about things such as paternity, right? We think like the point at which individuals exist in those societies where they are forced to be fathers of children that they really don't know. It's an uninformed decision, and you opt into situations that you wouldn't otherwise opt into. We think there's no true choice in the world when we ignore these things and we don't allow them to exist on this platform.
That was the leader of opposition making his case. At this point, we will be taking a short break. Stay tuned and we will be back with more. Welcome back to the 6th edition of the SASI Debate Challenge. Yes, that is the Speak and Solve initiative brought to you by SAYWHAT with support from the Swedish Embassy in Zimbabwe. Right about now, we'll be getting into the second quarter of our debate, and I'll be asking the Deputy Prime Minister to come through and make their case.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, the opening opposition came here and told us about how people are well informed about the proceedings of the DNA show. But what we as a delegation are simply saying is that at the end of the day, we truly know and we feel that Tinashe Mugabe's DNA show is taking advantage of people who do not fully understand the consequences that are brought about by their situation. Now, what are we saying? We are saying that at the end of the day, the moment that these people, and we can see and we can take examples from practical people who are there, we can see the caliber of people who go to the DNA show, ladies and gentlemen. They simply do not really understand the consequences that are associated with participating in the DNA show. They also came here and talked about how it is advertised in newspapers. But as a delegation, we know that these people, as they said, they gave an example of how someone could not even afford to be on the DNA show, ladies and gentlemen, but had to get money from someone else, ladies and gentlemen. Now, these are people that are struggling within our societies, and this DNA show is taking advantage of these very people. So now we as a delegation strongly regret the Tinashe Mugabe DNA show, because at the end of the day, these people do not really understand what they're getting themselves into. They just want a cheap way of figuring out the truth, because, ladies and gentlemen, these people cannot afford to have their DNA test done privately, and that is why we regret it, because this show is taking advantage of people who cannot afford, or people who do not really understand mentally and intellectually what they're getting themselves into, ladies and gentlemen. We also came as a delegation. We tried to give you our points where we talked about how the DNA show actually promotes harmful stereotypes, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay, ma'am, looking at how you are saying that people didn't afford to go on the DNA show, can you do a comparative analysis on how much it will cost for you to have a private DNA show, which is going to be $260?
Ladies and gentlemen, to have a DNA show is going to cost a lot of dollars, which an average person in Zimbabwe cannot even afford. Because given this current situation, ladies and gentlemen, people are going into turmoil each and every day, because it is something that is going to haunt you each and every day, thinking that, is this my child? Is this my child, ladies and gentlemen? And people actually are so desperate that they go to the ends of the earth to be able to get this truth, ladies and gentlemen. And at the end of the day, it's not worth it, because the DNA show is putting these people in a corner and manipulating them, because these people are going through a lot of mental turmoil, ladies and gentlemen, thinking if this person is actually a faithful wife, ladies and gentlemen. And we're also looking at how these people cannot afford, and we keep saying that they cannot afford, and thus they're tricked into signing contracts that they do not fully understand. And as a delegation, we came and we gave you some of our arguments where we're looking at how these people are promoting harmful stereotypes, ladies and gentlemen. Now, these stereotypes, ladies and gentlemen, end up marking other people, for example, single mothers and children of single mothers, as if they are another small key population that the society should shun down upon, ladies and gentlemen. And this is not what we want as a delegation. We also came here and talked about how it is unethical and unprofessional, ladies and gentlemen. The way that the DNA show itself is conducted, ladies and gentlemen, it leaves people, I think other people even might go and commit suicide. They are so depressed after that, because the way they conduct the show, ladies and gentlemen, it leads people to question if they really wanted to participate in the DNA show at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen. We we do understand that as a delegation, we're given an extension where we're saying that there are alternatives to the DNA show where people can actually go for mediation and get these results under closed doors, ladies and gentlemen. They can even also go for counseling, ladies and gentlemen, where they are told these things in confidentiality and they don't have to summer mental disorders.
That was the Deputy Prime Minister making her case. We will hear now from the Deputy Leader of Opposition. Deputy Leader of Opposition, the floor is yours.
I would like to begin by saying that it is so wrong for when a side of government comes here and speaks about exploitation based on a show that is governed by broadcasting rights, right? When we look at broadcasting rights, then we're looking at broadcasting ethics, right? So because there is such a thing as informed consent, automatically there exists things such as withdrawn consent, right? These are things that are clearly then explained in the nitty-gritties of your contract when you're going into the show, right? That's the first thing I want to speak on the exploitation line, right? And then they come through as well, still on the exploitation, and they want us to control people's need for truth, which is something we as a house cannot do, right? We come to you and we use their words. These men are haunted. These men are desperate for the truth, right? We also come to you and we say, well, at the surface of everything, the global DNA Zimbabwe is also a business, right? That is offering a service, right? For as long as the business itself is able to offer that service and offer it adequately and also offer it in a manner in which the person knows what they're going into when they're going into business with these people, then they're still then liable for their own actions, and we cannot then blame Tinashe Mugabe and his show, right? We also come to you and we say that on the idea of political correctness, what side government then says to us is that, well, if we could get to a point where we would say, Tinashe Mugabe, we want you to change the things you discuss, things happening in our society, such as sex and sexual reproductive health, things that are happening in our society, such as stereotyping, things that are happening in our society, such as issues around fidelity and infidelity. We want you to stop talking about those things to be politically correct. We lose it as a delegation because we are saying as a society, these are issues we need to always be actively discussing, right? When they also come and they speak on professionalism, listen, because this is TV, we know that there is going to be some sensationalism, but at the end of the day, what is at the core of the show? The core of the show is to evaluate our family structures and the bonds that bring them together. At the core of the show, we're looking at sex education, we're looking at family dynamics, and we're also building a problem solution dynamic, right? And then moving on to like positive matter, right? We come to you and we say that because infidelity and fidelity and sex are things that are existing in our society, it is so then important for us to put them on shows like this that give them a lighter note and make them things that are more palatable to society, and actually make it known that there is ways to handle these issues in a way that is safe and in a way that is guided, right? Tinashe clearly says at the end of the show that we're offering counseling services for those who are going to require it. What does that mean? He's identifying a problem, he's giving a solution for the problem, and then he's even going above and beyond and giving counseling, which is something we think is necessary in this debate, right? We also come to you and we say that it is not enough that a man sits in his house and feels some type of way about his children. We feel like if he wants to go and find out, we need to protect that need for truth. And also over and above that, we also need to protect the issue of accountability, right? We believe that men look after children that are not theirs and they go to prison for it. This is problematic. We also believe that women get away with a lot of things in society. This is problematic. But then we also feel like there's men who actively don't look after their children because they suspect that this child is not theirs. The DNA show proves and disproves fidelity, paternity, right? It says it's your child or it's not your child, right? In the case that it is your child, then we can hold you accountable to not look after the child. In the case that it is not your child, then we can hold this woman accountable for tearing this moral fabric of society that we're trying to hold together, right? So what have we brought to you today as side government, right? We've come and we've given you the rubrics that we're using to measure our regret. And we're saying that for as long as there is consent and for as long as all the stakeholders involved are served, we do not regret. We have also come and said that this show achieves such a larger purpose, and because of that, we are proud to say we support the show.
To have or not to have the Tinashe Mugabe DNA show at this juncture, we will be taking a short break. Stay tuned and we will be back with more. Welcome back to the 6th edition of the SASI Debate Challenge. Yes, this is the Speak and Solve initiative brought to you by SAYWHAT with support from the Swedish Embassy in Zimbabwe. We are now at the half mark of our debate of our arguments. I will be calling upon the member of government to come and introduce the second half of our debate topic.
Now, our debate is flying on a theme of child protection, cultural preservation, social development, and above all, the fabric of families. And these are the principles that Tinashe Mugabe's show does not consider. Simply because, indeed, they did mention that they offer counseling to individuals that have gone through the process of going to that show. But that counseling is simply tokenistic. Simply because, why would you put individuals in a situation where you traumatize them yourselves by taking their dirty laundry to the public, leaving them in a situation where they will be prone to harm, where they'll be prone to labeling and prone to be ridiculed, and then later you then offer them counseling services when your actions have traumatized them. So now our case extension is Tinashe Mugabe's show is attacking the cultural fabric of family. Looking at the Shona culture itself, there are concepts such as the Gomberangwana declined and Kupindira theories, whereby we see that in certain situations, when a woman has a child out of wedlock, to preserve the structure of a family and to move on in peaceful cohesion, we just move with the belief that that child belongs to the father, and this preserves and protects the child and the family at large. Now, Manobo delegation, we also are saying that he's making a mockery of marriage by exposing some of the weaknesses that come with marriage at a larger scale like that, and making sure that people are prone to ridiculing negative comments, stigma from the society. The entire institute of marriage will be broken down, and marriage is a very important part of our culture and society. And at the end of the day, this can then harm social development. In line with social development, we have an issue of biocentrism. This show pushes an agenda that family can also only be tracked by biological ties. We simply are saying that there are a lot of ties that come to family. This then attacks established concepts like adoption and concepts whereby people take care of orphans and stuff like that, simply because it creates in the mindset of the society that things like that are not important simply because of its biocentrism. And then we are saying that this show is dehumanifying. At the end of the day, each and every business should have one core principle, which is the inherent respect and dignity for human beings, which this show does not regard at all. Moving in that line with that, we are saying that the cultural consequences to the family, to the society, and everyone else are just gross. Hence, we regret the show. In line with that, we are saying that it leaves the society in second-hand trauma, simply because these families are traumatized and they're broken down. At the end of the day, society sees these things and they fear engaging and building families. And when we have people that will be able taken.
Are you saying that broken families only exist on the Mugabe show, or they are actually there in society?
The Mugabe show is perpetuating broken families, the problems of broken families in our community, because it brings that dirty laundry to the public, and then healing from that is near to impossible. So now we as a delegation are saying that we do not like the show and we regret the show because of what it stands for, and then it has no consideration for the welfare of these children, simply because it is simple. In Africa, people are regarded by the names of their children. So at the end of the day, no matter what privacy, that some tokenistic privacy you try to fool us by employing, at the end of the day, we all know that this is going to be my Maka on television, and we are going to mingle with Maka at school. Maka is going to be prone to bullying, and at the end of the day, it does not consider the welfare of children, and it is toxic to the environment as large. So what we as a delegation simply are hammering upon is the welfare of the society, the welfare of the child, the respect of human beings, and the respect of families and established cultural norms. Thank you.
That was the member of government making his case. We will be moving on to the member of opposition. Member of opposition, the floor is yours.
In the first half, we see that they see Tinashe Mugabe as an exploitative maniac who is manipulating the underprivileged. we see a pioneer and a social transformation genius who is helping us ask the difficult questions and opening up a discourse that has been long stifled in the African society. They said people are desperate, and I see no problem with the man who is giving them whatever it is that they are desperate for at no charge or very little charge as compared to what they would have paid. When we say that these people consented to the publication, we mean to say that this man gave them a contract and they contractually agreed that they would like to participate and they are comfortable being in the public eye. Culture, when you say that there are cultures in the Shona culture where people decide to define the family however and so on and so on, the culture in itself is not founded in lies. The father deserves to know that this child is not biologically mine and then decides to take in that child as his own. But he first has to know. And Tinashe Mugabe is delivering truth. We cannot force families to define a family or their own families in a way that we like. When you say that we are being biocentric, them going to Tinashe Mugabe is them choosing to have been biocentric, and we can't stand in the way of their choices. We do not regret the Tinashe Mugabe show, as we feel that it upholds truth and delivers a social transformation, and it is a pioneer show and the first of its kind in the country, delivering and harnessing science to solve problems that have existed in the society for centuries. We may be uncomfortable to talk about the infertility of women, the infertility of men, and so on and so on. But Tinashe Mugabe helps us to ask these questions, helps us to provide answers, and gives everyone closure. We regret things when they do not serve their purpose, when they do more harm than good. In this case, the show is called the Closure DNA Show, and we see people being given closure on this said show. The show has... So in this show, we promote responsible parenting, which is to say that those people who have parents who have rejected them under suspicion that they are not theirs are then forced to take responsibility for their actions and parent their children, which is a healthy contribution in the society. Counseling is offered on the show to give people closure, and every time we have open secrets where people end up being stereotyped and attacked and so on and so on. This show gives us a chance to appreciate the truth in its entirety. So, with this, I would like to say that we do not regret the show, and we feel that the show should continue, and we need more media houses to participate in activities that open up discourses that we are uncomfortable with, in a respectable manner, of course. When they say makach kabota, that is euphemism, and it's a respectable term that is palatable to the audience, and we feel that this should continue, and this man here is a pioneer who has delivered social transformation for us to appreciate the truth and only the truth at all costs. With this, I thank you.
That was indeed the member of opposition. Podium 3, if you could please switch on your mic. And in the same vein, Maka, if you are watching, call 577 for psychosocial support. At this juncture, we will be taking a short break. Stay tuned, and we'll be back with more. Welcome back to the 6th edition of the SASI Debate Challenge. Yes, the Speak and Solve initiative brought to you by SAYWHAT with support from the Swedish Embassy in Zimbabwe. Today we are talking about the Tinashe Mugabe DNA show. To have it or not to have it, we're in the last quarter of our argument, which means the last two speakers will be coming up to make their cases. At this juncture, I would like to call upon the government whip to come through and make their case.
Okay, so us as side government, we are coming to you here, and we hear from opening government 3 major points. The first one being that there is a lack of informed consent from these people. The second one is that it is unethical to air such private things online. And the third is that we perpetuate stereotypes of cheating women in our societies. And what we are saying is that we definitely agree with a lot of these points. And from side opposition, which talks about how these people sign contracts before they come onto the show, we say to them, and they talk about the issue that informed consent has already been given, we say to them, a person who is in desperation, a person whose mind is clouded by a person who is not thinking clearly, whose mind is clouded by some sort of trauma or uncertainty, cannot in any way ever give informed consent. Desperate people will always take the most extreme measures to gain answers to their problem, and therefore we cannot blame these people. And therefore we cannot blame these people for falling prey to someone like Tinashe Mugabe, who is, for all intents and purposes, a con man because of the type of ideology that his show perpetuates. Side opposition comes and they talk to us about how they want to maintain values, and we're saying that you cannot maintain the value of something if you are bastardizing the privacy of the people who are involved in it. And there is no true, and we are saying, and they come to us and they say that there is no true choice because these people are being forced to take care of children that are theirs. And we are coming to you with the point of biocentrism, where we say that family can consist of any number of people from anywhere without that genetic link. Now, us as closing government, we are coming to you and we are saying that this show has got very little societal value, and what we are striving for is to preserve the family institution. This type of show perpetuates cultural decay and familial trauma and social trauma. We come to you and we talk about how we have issues of tokenistic counseling, where we know that the only reason why such a show exists is because of the only reason why such measures of counseling exist is because these people are actively being exploited. If they were not being exploited, there would be no need for this type of counseling. And therefore, we are seeing that it has perpetuated some of this negativity. And we are also saying that this show has not started any positive or any meaningful discourse regarding fidelity or sexual health of people. And therefore we are saying that we regret it, because we are seeing that this type of discourse that opposition claims that this show this show is starting, it's really not the case. If Tinashe Mugabe wanted to start actual discourse on these types of things, he would have done it in a manner that does not sensationalize the private lives of people. We also see the fact that Tinashe Mugabe is actually one of the co-founders of Global DNA, which means that this show we can already see that this show is a cash grab. It simply exists to profit from the private lives of people. Because if Tinashe Mugabe really wanted to help these people, he would take them aside and do the DNA testing with the cameras off. So we are saying to you as side closing government that this show has no societal value, and this show is contributing to trauma, because we are seeing that not only are the people who are on camera affected, but the people who are behind the scenes as well, the children, and it therefore has detrimental effects to society. So this show, we regret the existence of this show because it harms the institute of the family. Thank you.
That was the government whip making her case. We will be moving swiftly on to the last speaker of the debate, which is the closing opposition whip. Closing opposition whip, the floor is yours.
All right. The first and most important thing that we're supposed to look into this debate is the major clashes that we have, right? First of all, we have a clash in the opening half of how these particular individuals are being exploited and how this is not an informed decision and how there is no consent whatsoever, right? We believe that this is actually fallacious in the sense that, of course, it comes to you and gives you an analysis of how these particular individuals, they are asked if they want to do this or not, if there is any question that exists when it comes to paternity, right? And also, Tando also gives you a further analysis of how these particular individuals, they're literally going to sign a contract. And since they're going to sign a contract, you also know that this contract is going to be certified by broadcasting rights, or whereby they're not supposed to exploit people at the end of the day. So I don't believe that you are going to have any form of exploitation, and we don't believe that these people, they're not going to have any informed decision, because these people actually know what they are going to do and what is going to happen in the procedures, right? The second clash that existed is how they're talking about the affordability of this itself, right? So we posed a POI as closing opposition on how we asked them that please do a comparative analysis of the amount of money that they are going to pay when they are on global DNA, which is just a small token amount as compared to 260 that is supposed to be paid when question of paternity rises and you need to take a paternity test, right? We believe that a paternity package is $260 for the father and the child, right? So we believe that this show actually does more good than harm, because people that have the paternity in question, people that have paternity questions, they actually get a chance to go to a platform that is going to be affordable for them, and all their questions are going to be addressed to, right? They also talked about how we believe that we are harming the child, giving us this particular stakeholder analysis on how we're harming the mother and the father at the end of the day. But we clearly tell you as opposition that what you have to consider is that all these people, is that the male and the female, they're in consensus to this, so they'd a fisticuff about whether Tadiwa is my Tadiwa's child, or is my Tadiwa's child or not. So after having that fisticuff at the end of the day, they're like, all right, fine, let's call Tinashe Mugabe and let's go and do a paternity test. Tinashe Mugabe, when he goes there, first of all, he wants to know the background of the story, and then he does the paternity test. It's not like he's exploiting them. He tells them that I'm going to ask you questions, and in particular instances, if you watch the Tinashe Mugabe show, if a particular individual doesn't want to answer a particular question, they're not obligated to answer that. So that means they're not even forced. That means they're doing this out of consent at the end of the day, right? So we are also looking at how they're saying that, okay, it tears the fabric of society in the sense of how a traditional family is supposed to be like. We believe that when we're looking and also engaging on their point of biocentrism that they state, we believe that a child deserves to know who his actual father is, for the issues of identity as alluded by my fellow member. That this child needs to know who the father is at the end of the day, and also the father needs to know if this child is theirs. So we give the father an initial choice whether he chooses to keep on supporting this child or doesn't choose to support this child at the end of the day, right? So we believe that when you look at when we regret something when it does more harm than good, and when it doesn't serve its purpose. We believe that we do not regret the Tinashe Mugabe show because it has done more good than harm, right? We tell you about how itself it has shown us how it's important to have proper family structures, and how we can promote a certain discourse whereby we deal with infidelity in society, and also it helps people it helps children for them to get their actual identity at the end of the day when they get their results, which is the mandate of the show. We also believe that this show it's supposed to be educative at the end of the show when it comes to promoting discourse. So definitely don't regret that. Let's look at a circumstance where we are not going to have the Tinashe Mugabe show. The circumstance where we are not going to have the Tinashe Mugabe show is whereby we are going to have children that do not have an identity, and at the end of the day we are going to have a society that doesn't know that if infidelity exists, and we are not going to have a society that doesn't show how certain families at the end of the day are supposed to be run.
With those words, that closes this debate. After a short while, we will be having results, but I hope there will be no reenactment of the actual Tinashe DNA show where one of our participants just runs off the stage. Before we see that happening, we will be taking a short break. Stay tuned. We will be having more. Welcome back to the 6th edition of the debate tournament, the debate challenge, brought to you by Say What, with support from the Swedish Embassy in Zimbabwe. I am here with 4 teams that have just argued their hearts out on this table. I want to understand, Podium 1, how are you feeling?
It's okay.
You said?
It's okay.
It's okay. And
Yes.
ma'am, how are you feeling?
We're feeling good.
You're feeling good?
Yeah.
Confident? You're going to win this?
I guess they're about to say that.
They're about to say that. Podium 2, how do you feel?
In the words of one of Tinashe Mugabe's cases,
Go ahead.
terrible, that's not it.
That's not it. Is that how you're feeling as well, sir?
Yes, yes.
As we continue with That's Not It, Podium 3, how are you feeling?
Can't really say now. Still trying to come down from the high of the debate.
Okay, okay. Yes, and?
I'm feeling pretty good.
Feeling pretty good.
I had fun.
You don't need to call 577?
No,
You cool?
not today.
Not today. All right, maybe another day. We shall see. And fourth podium, how are you feeling? Haibo, what just happened there?
I'm okay.
You're okay.
Yeah.
All righty. We will see what will be happening as the adjudicators come through. Hopefully, none of our contestants will be making a run for it because I don't believe our cameramen are ready to be following them. Chief Adjudicator, the floor is yours.
Good day, debaters. Congratulations on making it so far into the debate tournament. I know that this would be your last round before moving on to the semi-finals. So I'd like to say that as a judging panel, we've enjoyed having you debating and hearing your opinions and also participating in you expressing some of your skills. With that being done, our call and then the justification. So as a panel, we unanimously, after some deliberation, agreed that in fourth position, we had opening opposition. In third position, we had closing opposition. In second position, we had opening government. And in first position, we had closing government. Our justification... That's a call. Yes. Our justification for the call, in terms of the conversations that were raised in the conversation we had in the debate, we had firstly the issue of choice. To what extent can we talk about choice in the Tinashe Mugabe show? Secondly, the issue of impact and social responsibility. Why, in this debate, we gave the debate to closing government? We felt that, firstly, they had the most direct impact analysis in the debate, which was on young people, on children, to say that the biggest victim in this, even if there's consent between parents, mother and father, the effect comes to, the worst effect falls upon the most vulnerable participant in all of this conversation, who is a child, who gets back into society, who is bullied. So even if parents could not afford going for DNA testing, they're still the most vulnerable person. And then secondly, it publicizes conflict and robs these families the ability of having genuine closure, because if your issues have been publicized, it becomes hard for you to actively engage in those issues when the whole nation is participating in your conflict. That is why we ranked them first. Why we ranked their opening second, we felt, in as much as they did touch on a couple of important arguments, for instance, firstly, people cannot afford DNA, therefore, even if they go into it, opting into it, it is a manufactured consent because they are stuck in a prison of no alternative. We bought that argument in terms of the opening half engagement on the idea of consent itself. Opening opposition tells us that, yes, these people consent to going to the DNA show. That means that all the consequences are things that they consent to. When opening government comes and responds and says, we do not necessarily buy into that. We think that they are going to the DNA show because they do not have money, firstly. Secondly, even if they did consent to it, very often your consent as an individual is not enough when we are considering the impact on the broader society.
And that is it. All cases having been made and the results having been delivered, there is nothing more to say than to simply ask podium by podium which university they're from and what ranking they received today. Podium 1.
80, we're position 2.
Podium 2.
This is the University of Zimbabwe in fourth position.
Podium 3.
Africa University in third position. In
Oh.
first position, sorry.
Podium 4.
This is Gwanda State University in third position.
Africa University takes this round. With everything being said, I would like to remind you that this debate challenge is brought to you by Say What, with support from the Swedish Embassy in Zimbabwe. I was and still will be your debate mistress, Nicole Natsai Chimanikire, also powerfully known as .co.Nicole. Until next time.